Guys, welcome to our second Type 9 live panel discussion here in the Enneagram 9 Stories community. I am Lindsay Hager, and I'm a Type 9. I'm the creator of this community, and I'm the host of the Peacemakers podcast. Today, our topic is, since learning that you're a Type 9 on the Enneagram, how have you grown? So we want you that are listening, that are joining us live or for the replay, we want you to take something away today. We want you to either resonate with what we're saying and be like, yes, that's me, I've always felt that. Or we want you to be able to say, hey, I can do that. I can try and grow in this way. Or maybe it's just you like recognizing how you are already growing. So that's really important too. So I'm joined by my 7 panelists. I think that's right. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 panelists. Great. And I just want to thank you all for being here, for taking the time out of your day here on this Thursday. Some of you have jumped in like last minute, and I'm sending you all the love here. For those of you that are viewing live or later on the recordings, thank you also for joining us. We are doing 2 Starbucks gift card giveaways for anyone joining live. So $5 gift cards for 2 people. We'll do that drawing at the very end. So make sure you're commenting or liking or just asking questions throughout so that we know that you're there. And we're going to start out with some introductions. So we've numbered everyone. If you're watching the screen right now, we've numbered everyone. That's why it says 1 Miranda, 1 or 3 Brandon. And everyone's going to introduce themselves just for like a minute. They're going to tell us where they're from, what they do, and how long they have known that they're a Type 9. So we'll start with Miranda.
Hi. So I am Miranda. I grew up a military brat, so I moved about every 3 years, but now I would say I'm from Washington. I've been here for going on 3 years now. What I do, I got my degree in early childhood education. So I taught preschool for a while. I taught kindergarten. I was a childcare director. Right now, I'm just going to be doing nannying, just kind of trying to wait out COVID and hopefully get back into a classroom. And then I've known I'm a 9 for about a year. My little sister was constantly posting Enneagram stuff. She's a 6, and I got really curious. So I got on there and figured out I am most definitely a 9.
All right, thank you. Okay, go ahead, Brandon. I'm sorry, not Brandon. Helen. Go, Helen.
Hi, I'm Helen. I'm from the southwest coast of the UK. And I've been a teacher for over 40 years, and some of that was children aged 3 to 17, so-called normal children, and then students up to 70, but also children and students of with learning disabilities. And currently that's who I teach now, is young adults with learning disabilities. And I recently, actually tomorrow, it's the birthday of my business that I launched last summer, as a virtual assistant. So my teaching is still my passion, but administration and all of that and just working from home is my relaxation. I've known I was a 9 for 11 years now. So
that's awesome. Thank you so much, Helen. And your business is called Hey Helen, right?
It is. It's called Hey Helen. Yes.
All right. Okay, go ahead, Brandon.
Hey, I'm Brandon. I live and have lived my whole life in northern Indiana. I work from home for a major insurance company here in the US, and also have a podcast I kind of do on the side, and been doing that since the fall. And I have known that I've been a 9 for probably around 2 years. And I was just one of those things where I heard about it on podcasts or people talking about it and took some tests and nothing clicked. And then once I read about the 9, like I just knew that's what I was, and have just really been digging into the Enneagram for the past 2 years.
Awesome. Okay, Marjana.
Hello, I'm Marjana. I am in Central California. Found out that I was a 9 coming up on a year in October. So not too long, but it's been a super incredible journey for me. I've always loved personality tests and figuring out more about myself. And um, I work as a nurse in mental health. One of my coworkers uh, introduced me, and it just clicked, and it was amazing. So it's been a good journey to be in.
Yeah, that's awesome. Thank you. Okay, Eli, are you next? Yeah, Eli.
Hi, I'm Eli. I live in Los Alamos, New Mexico right now. That will be changing in about 2 days. I'm moving to Florida. Um,
Wow.
I um, got an undergraduate degree in computer engineering, but part of working and all of that, I decided, oh, well, I don't really like this. And after thinking some more, I decided, oh, I'm going to go into therapy. So I'm moving to Florida and I'll be doing online classes to work towards a degree for that.
That's awesome.
I've known that I am a 9 for probably about 6 months. I've known the Enneagram for a year and I thought that I was a 2 for the longest time. And then one of my friends pointed out 9 and I looked at it and I was like, oh, you're probably right.
All right. Thank you, Eli. Okay, Emily? Yeah, go ahead, Emily.
Hey there. Yes, I'm Emily. I am down here in Atlanta, Georgia, and I actually teach the Enneagram for a living because it has been so powerful to me. I didn't intend to do that. I was a stay-at-home mom, and basically I started listening to all the podcasts and just learning for myself. And then eventually our church was going to do a book club book study through The Road Back to You. And I had gone to a 2-day workshop that Suzanne and Ian had put on. And I said, oh, I'd be happy to help co-lead this because I just went to this workshop. And the minister said, actually, I don't really know anything about this. I just picked the book because we had to pick a book. Why don't you just lead the whole thing? So for me, from a Christian perspective, that was very much God handing it to me. From just a general Enneagram 9 perspective, that's exactly what I needed as a 9 was, here you go. And then I could take it and run with it, but I could never have had the to start it on my own.
Mm-hmm.
And basically I started teaching these classes and I had so much fun with it and they went so well that it blossomed into a business. So learning the Enneagram has changed my life. And so I've known about it for about 5 years and then really been into it for about the last 3 or 4. And before COVID, I joked that I was an Enneagram teacher from 8 to 2 and then a mom from 2 to 8. So I have an 8.5 and 11.5-year-old son. And so part-time Enneagram teacher, part-time mom. How I divide my days.
Great. Thank you so much, Emily. Okay, and we have Heather, right? Heather is last. Okay, go ahead, Heather.
Hi. I'm Heather. I live in Myrtle Beach, South Carolina, originally from Maryland. I work for a medical coding company right now, but I'm also in school. I've been in school for a couple years, going back for psychology to be a therapist. And I've been obsessed with the Enneagram for probably about 2 years now. So super into all of this.
That's great. Yeah, I was telling the panelists before we started, some of you I know already, some of you have been here for a few months, and others I'm just meeting. So I just appreciate everybody taking the time to come here today. And for those of you listening or watching through the Facebook group, again, I just want to say welcome. Thanks for being here. So we are going to start off with a quote. And if you have been a part of Enneagram 9 stories for very long or listen to the Peacemakers podcast, I'm always talking about one of my favorite books, which is called The Wisdom of the Enneagram. It's really like the 9 chapter is like all written up, and that's really, really self-serving, but it's just the truth. So let me just tell you one quick thing about myself. So for the panelists and for anybody that doesn't know me, I have been, like many of you, have been involved or interested in personal development and kind of like self-assessment for a long time. But over the past probably 2 or 3 years, discovering my number has been like, it's just been really healing. So learning, hearing others share their stories and hearing others talk about like their experience in being someone that's in the background of their life or that's numbed out to their feelings. And just hearing people talk about like feeling like they're nobody special, like, I don't know, I've just always been an internal processor and just sit back and watch. And so it's just been really, it's been healing. It's been grieving for me, like a grieving process. But I love that you are here because, like I was telling all of you panelists before we started, it really doesn't matter. I mean, I love that each of you have your own journeys. Some of you have known about it for 6 months. Some of you have known about it for 3 years or 11 years, but we're each on a different path. We're each on our own path of growth. And I think we each have something to bring here today. So that's my point, is that whoever's listening, you have something to bring. And I don't know what's brought you to listen today or to watch or to be on the panel exactly, but I just think we're all super valuable. And I want to encourage all of us to bring our voices to our lives every single day. So back to the wisdom of the Enneagram. A quote from page 338. It says, "Nines reclaim our essential nature by confronting our basic fear of losing connection and by letting go of the belief that our participation in the world is unimportant." So we don't have this feeling that we can show up for our lives. But when we can let go of that, we start to realize that the only way to truly achieve the unity and wholeness that we truly seek is not by checking out into our imaginations, but by fully engaging in ourselves and in the present moment. So like I said, you may have known about the Enneagram for 5 years, 6 months, whatever it is, you are here today, and or you're here listening or watching and you're present. And so that tells me something. It tells me that you're doing whatever you can at this moment to show up. So I salute you. Okay, so we're gonna just go right into our question. And the question today is, since learning you're a 9, how have you grown? I've asked the panelists to talk about this for a couple of minutes. We don't have to get crazy about the 2 to 3 minute mark, but somewhere between, under 4 minutes, I would say. And tell us details. I mean, if you've grown in a specific way in a relationship or, in your self-awareness, tell us details about what that looks like for you every day so that everyone that's listening and watching can get the most out of this panel. Okay, so we'll start with Miranda.
Hi. So I would say the biggest growth that I've had is learning to kind of show up for myself and form opinions, because I've spent so much of my life just kind of agreeing what other people are saying or going along with what I think everyone else will enjoy, to the point that I don't even really stop and think about what I like to do or what I enjoy doing. And so I've been, especially with my husband, trying to make sure that if he comes to me with some kind of crazy idea, like buying a boat that we don't need, that I can actually stop and think to myself, is this something that I want to support? Or is this something that I'm just supporting because I don't want to deal with a conflict that might come from it? And I think that really has made our relationship so much deeper, because I'm learning how to be myself and voice my own opinions rather than just always going with the flow. So.
Yeah. Have you seen that? You mentioned it with your husband, it comes up. How else has that kind of going with the flow showed up for you in other relationships?
I don't really know how to answer that. Well, I guess we have some friends here now. For a while, since I've been up here in Washington, it's been just me and my husband. But we have a couple of friends that we do hang out with now, and we chat about like where we're going to hike or what we're going to do on the weekends, because we do go out almost every weekend. And so if there's an idea that we've thrown out there, I would just let everybody else pick what we're going to do. And I would just sit around and, whatever, I'll let them figure it out and I'll just come along. But I've actually been actively looking for things that I'm interested in doing, and it worked out really well. Last weekend, we actually found an area around our house that's bioluminescent. And so we were able to go out and paddle it. And if I hadn't engaged in trying to figure something out for us to do, then we might not have ever found that opportunity.
Yeah, that's awesome. That's really cool. I have found for myself that because I've also been in that place of like, I don't know what I want, or I don't know like how to even figure that out. But once I have stepped into something that I like and tried it and like continued in it, it's like the more steps you take forward in that, the more that you can I guess find who you are or start to embrace more of that part of yourself. So it's really cool. Thank you. All right, number 2, Helen.
Hi. Well, one of the things I'm very strong on justice and injustice. And one of the things, the way I learned about the Enneagram mainly was through being in a group. So I was in a group for, we were learning, or not learning, but we were all having Alexander technique. And so our learning was about the Enneagram. So if we understand what's happening to us, then we understand what's going wrong in our body. And her husband, who was a 5, used to get really irritated with, and it was seemed to be 3 of us, and we were all 9s, and what was happening was I was listening really deeply to everything that he had to say, and then he would suddenly say, sort of look at us and say, well, are you listening at all? And he kept implying that we were just like sacks of potatoes sitting there, just not engaged. And I was so upset and so full of injustice, because I knew that I was deep inside myself listening for all I was worth, and it would take me a while to come all the way back out again and deliver an answer or a response in my body that would show I'd been listening. So once I got over my hurt, I worked out that I had to quickly give a holding statement. So if I couldn't answer the question, I'd say, oh yeah, that's really interesting, give me a minute, I'll think about that and I'll come back to you. So I had to say something, and I practiced that in other relationships as well. When they were saying something, I would come in with a holding statement before I delivered my response, and that seemed to improve things an awful lot. So that's really interesting. That was the problem I didn't even know was existing until then.
How did you learn about the holding statement? Who gave you that language?
Me. That was just my way of putting it, it's that I knew that I had to say something, because it would take me a time to formulate a worthwhile response. And the other person seemed impatient, waiting for it, and perhaps thinking it wasn't coming. That's how I came up with the fact that I needed to say something, and I called it a holding statement.
Yeah.
Just so they knew I heard and that I was doing something with it. And that did a huge difference to me in lots of situations. And then the other thing is that I realized that in the merging that we do as 9s, it actually adds to my compassion, because I've always had compassion as a person, but I think the merging helps even more, because it means that all the other numbers, once I learned about them, I could actually have compassion for what they were struggling with. I mean, I had a 2 partner, and it was a complete nightmare because it was a very unhealthy 2. And I just found it really difficult. But once I understood what the 2s were battling with, or what the shadow side was, what the motivation was, I understood it, and it stopped being personal, and I could have respect for the battle. And that went for the other 9s as well, all the other numbers as well. Once you know what people are struggling with or what their motivation is, it takes it above the personal. So that did help my, compassion somehow for people even more.
Yeah. I totally relate with what you're saying about like, hey, Elizabeth, just saw you. You want to mute your sound really quick? I totally relate to what you're saying about like feeling rushed in a moment to respond, or like processing. I feel like I don't know if it's that I'm processing slowly, or it's that I want to say it fast enough so that they'll listen. Like if I have like, 25 words to say, I'm trying to like condense it into 10 words so that I can keep them engaged in this moment. And so sometimes that makes me kind of be like, it's like I can't even find the word because I'm like trying to navigate all these thoughts as I go. But so I liked what you said about holding statement. And I also like how I've heard people say, like, if they're asked a question, like to give their input, they're like, or type nines will say, if you can give me a moment, or if you can I answer you tomorrow? Can I get back with you tomorrow? Like just something as easy as that, not feeling pressure to respond right now, giving yourself time to process. I think that's a really great way that we can just do like one thing that can be a really big growth opportunity for us. So
I think as well, people seem to really really respond to and appreciate what we do have to say when we've got it to say. So they do learn that it's worth waiting.
yes, that's a great point. That is a great point. I have totally felt that. I don't know if you guys saw all my notes that I gave to you guys on Enneagram and Coffee with Sarah Jane Case. She had a quote, or she did an episode on the soul child theory, and one of the things that I love about it, it says that the way she describes the 9 in the soul child theory, that's when we kind of like feel like we can like go towards that 3 arrow and have that growth, is she says 9s have this little bitty 3 inside who is ambitious, competitive, and confident. So like I have always felt that. I've always felt like, oh, there's something trying to get out, or there's like, I'll see an achiever, I'll see a type 3, and I'm like, why can't I be that, or whatever, which has a whole other slew of shame and stuff that I deal with because of that. But back to what you're saying, Helen, it's like, we do have something to offer. We do have something to give. And once we can get to those thoughts or assert ourselves enough, get the confidence, and it's like, oh, wow, like, look who's speaking up. Look who has something to say. So that's great. I love that. Helen, did you have anything else to add? Were you finished?
No, that was it. Thank you.
Okay, good. Okay, Brandon.
Hey, so as I was thinking about this, like there's several different ways that this I could go, like, because the Enneagram has helped me in my marriage. I'm married to a type 1, and it's helped me as a parent. I have 4 kids that are from 3 years old all the way up to 14 years old. And but the one thing that I was thinking about the most, and especially probably over the last like 9 months or so, is that the area I've seen my growth is just like realizing that my voice does matter. And I see you talk about in the group about like not feeling like we're not special, like we don't have anything special to offer. And I mentioned earlier that I had a podcast, and that's been thinking about doing for years probably, and just would never like take that initial step to do it because I had to be perfect and I had to be right, and I like I had to have all these things set up perfectly. But eventually I just had to be like, you know what, I'm just going to do it and put my voice out there. And because I think a lot of times I feel that there's already so many people out there saying something, like what else do I have to offer to that situation that somebody else hasn't already said?
Mm-hmm.
And so what somebody had told me, and not even really related to the Enneagram, but spoke to me and my 9ness, was that even if I'm repeating something that's already been said by many other people out there, that the way that I say it may be the way that somebody needs to hear it. And so that's how I went into it is, and with my podcast, just like and not only just like having a podcast and putting my voice out there, but also realizing that I do have strong opinions about things. and that it's okay for me to voice those strong opinions. Is there a possibility that it could fracture relationships? Is there a possibility that people could pull away from our relationship because of those strong opinions? That's always a possibility. But if I'm not voicing those opinions, if I'm not voicing those things, then I'm really depriving the people around me of my whole self.
Mm.
And so, I still get anxiety and get sick to my stomach when I like post something, a strong opinion on like Facebook or social media or even in a conversation, but I still do it anyway because there may be somebody who's heard that from dozens of different people before, but it never like impacted them or clicked with them until they heard the way that I said it. And so my voice and my opinions are important and they do matter, and somebody may need to hear it. Even, and if they don't, then it's just for me to be my whole self.
Yeah, I love that. I mean, and just think about like all the ways that we have grown throughout our lives and all the input that people have given to us. Like we haven't just learned something from one person, we've learned it from, our parents or our siblings or friends at school. And it's like we've picked up little things. And so why can't we type nines be one of those voices out in the world saying, hey, have you thought about this? Because I mean, I'm sorry guys, I have goosebumps. Because it's like, if we can see all sides of an issue, if that's one of our gifts, and if we can say things in a way that maybe people will accept it, or maybe people will trust us because we've held space for them, then it's like we're in a perfect position to put our voice out there and, and see what happens. And Brandon and I totally agreed that it's like, it's almost like let the cards fall where they may. If you can get yourself to the point of saying like, I've held myself back too long and I can't do this anymore, then you start to see that payoff. It's like, even if there is some conflict, then you see the payoff because you feel like you're more of yourself. So like that. Do you have anything else to add, Brandon, or were you finished? No pressure.
No, that's all I got for now. Yeah.
Okay. Marjana. Oh, sorry. Are you muted?
Am I on now?
There we go.
There we go. Okay. There's been so many things that I've been learning about myself and growing in through the whole process of learning about being a 9. I tried to do a lot of things at the same time, and that was a little bit overwhelming. So, but doing simple things, like I've grown in my relationship with my husband. My husband's a 5. He's very factual. He likes to talk, and I just sit there and okay with everything without stating an opinion or giving a thought that maybe this different perspective might be helpful to whatever situation we're dealing with. And it's been super helpful in our marriage because he's working on his side of things too. It's been helpful to both of us.
Marjana, your audio is cutting out just a bit. I don't know if it's your mic.
I don't know. I think I was having this problem last time. Is it working better now?
I think so.
Okay.
But I've heard you. I've heard what you've said. Just, I think that the mic, it was the mic.
Okay. Another thing, I have very strong personalities in my family. So learning boundaries and saying no and speaking up for myself has been super instrumental in actually healing relationships rather than causing more conflict that I thought it would cause. Working on things specifically with my parents and their interjection in my life and what I'm doing, and being okay with being myself. I am me, and that's okay. And I have value.
Can I ask you, how did you, what did you do to learn the boundaries? Like, did you read a book? Like, what was that?
I've been reading a lot of books. Several. I've read the Sacred Enneagram, the Wisdom of the Enneagram, the Road Back to You, learning about all the 9ness, and then just kind of putting into practice the things I've been trying to teach my patients in the last 8 years working in mental health. Like, I can give people tons of advice, but I don't always put it into my own life. And so the things that I have learned just working in my field and teaching others, I'm trying to embrace and teach myself. And then simple things like say that my order is wrong somewhere. Like the other night I was at work and went through a drive-through and got something, and they had put meat on it, and I didn't want meat on it because I'm vegetarian. So I decided, I had already gotten back to work, so take the rest of my lunch break and go back, drive through, and be like, hey, you know what, you got it wrong, instead of giving it to a coworker. Silly, simple things like that have been have been happening for me, as well as the big relationship building things with my family and stuff.
That's really good. I also wanted to ask, like, when you went from feeling like you were just kind of watching conversations happening, or, you know, sitting there listening to your husband and not participating as much, like when you went from not doing it to inserting yourself in the conversations and in your opinions, like, what was that like, that transition from not doing it to starting to do it?
It was a very bumpy road. It came out all like super angry and super like "Rawr," when I first started stating my opinion. Because I would wait. I've always waited too long to state my opinion, so I'm learning to state it sooner instead of getting to that breaking point where I'm exploding. So I was like halfway in between that I'm exploding because I can't hold back anymore, and like trying to push myself. So it was bumpy, but
Yeah.
it's becoming a lot easier. Sometimes I get overwhelmed and need the quiet time that I don't take for myself often enough, I think. The other night, Phil was in the kitchen cooking something and was talking about information. I had been overwhelmed from the night before of a lot of chaos at work. And I just stopped him and I was like, hey, I don't want to detract from what you're trying to do and from what you're trying to tell me, but I really need some silence. Like, can we have like 5-10 minutes of just quiet? He understands now.
Yeah.
And
so just like speaking up for
just
yourself,
speaking up and saying, I need that, I need this, or taking the ability to know that I need that space and that I'm worth speaking up for myself.
Yeah, that's good. I also, I feel like that I think I was saying this to Brandon, like when we take that step, when we just move forward, or maybe it was Helen, when we just like kind of put our toe in the water, it's almost like when we can start to feel that the energy that comes from the right action as a 9, it's kind of like, you know, we want more of it. So it doesn't mean that we don't still struggle. You know, it doesn't mean that we don't still have fears about putting our, Eli, I'm just going to have you start all over. Okay. So tell us, as a type 9, tell us about your growth.
I guess one of the biggest things that's been an impetus for my growth is seeking close relationships with friends, and realizing that people want me around. I tend to tell myself that, you know, they did this and that means that they don't want me around, but when really it's just, you know, something completely offhanded, they didn't mean it that way or whatever. So part of my growth has been realizing that, and kind of taking that and kind of questioning it. So if you know, there's one of those comments that kind of comes across one way, I kind of assume that they're not talking that way, but it still kind of hits me. I'll go talk to that friend and talk about the feelings underneath it instead of what they said, and say, I didn't like that you said that. This is how you made me feel. And kind of talking preemptively helps prevent all of that anger from building up.
Yeah.
and building a divide between us. And
I know that you were saying that earlier,
Mhm.
that I was asking you, how did you learn that? Because that's a big skill to go from not having or not asserting to asserting.
I'm honestly not sure where I learned that in particular. There's a big concept floating around called I feel statements that I stumbled upon one day. I'm not really sure of the source, and I've kept repeatedly stumbling upon it and remembering, oh yeah, I need to do that instead of doing it this way. And to give context, an I feel statement is essentially when you do blank or when you did blank, I felt blank because blank.
Mm-hmm.
And it helps prevent defensiveness coming up from the other person.
Yeah, it's just like your good old-fashioned assertion model. It's like, it's the stuff that we should have learned way back in the day as children. And I have a license in school counseling. Even as a school counselor, I have taught kids that, but unless they're like getting it over and over and over from their home, from every direction, and having opportunities to practice it, it's not ingrained. So that's really awesome. I love that. I love that advice. And I love that you are slowing yourself down enough to do it in the moment and to like find your value to do that. That's huge.
Oh, it's a bit easier for me because most of those close friends are online, so it helps create that separation. I have that time between, so I may sit there for like 20 minutes before I really, or which kind of reminds me something else that it's kind of been coming up for me is instead of apologizing to people for being overwhelming or being all these things that I assume that I am, is to thank them for it. Because if I apologize for it, then the other person is going to feel bad because chances are they don't feel that way about me. And then they feel like they have to change that in me. But if I thank them, then they're going to respond in a much better way, and it helps rewire my brain as well. To
Interesting.
Understand that it's okay to be the way that I am.
Yeah, I like that. That's really cool. All right. Emily, are you next?
I am, yes.
Okay, great.
Oh, I mean, every single thing people have shared, I've been writing notes like, yes, that is, which is such a good reminder that growth is so many little things. I mean, here I'm the sixth person, and everything the first five people have shared, I've thought, yeah, I did that. Yep, that's helped. Like, it's all the little things that add up to the big changes.
Yeah.
I had lots of thoughts of how I've seen it, but the biggest for me has been in my business, because never would I have thought that I would have started a business out of my 9-ness. It would have felt too overwhelming and stuff. And Brandon, I really resonated with what you said with the podcast, because in teaching the Enneagram, I kept thinking that, well, especially when I was first starting, but anybody can do this. Like, why would people pay me to do this? I've just read a lot of books, and it took, and I think Eli, you mentioned as well, it was so many supportive friends that said, yeah, but Emily, you've read the books, like, you've taken the time, and so I literally had to rewire my brain to get over the thought that for people to pay me that, and actually like a baby step that I made it to for that, because I couldn't grasp that people could pay me for something. So I actually, my baby step was, okay, well, if I am teaching people, then that means I have to pay for childcare. So I will charge as much as what will cover my childcare. And then that way, like, that's how I grew into realizing, okay, my time if I'm willing to pay somebody to watch my kids, then somebody could pay me to teach them about the Enneagram. So that was a big thing for me, was just realizing my worth and that I had something to contribute. And along the lines of supportive friends and a supportive spouse, at one point, as I was growing my business, I was venting to my best friend that I was frustrated that I felt like other people were going bigger, faster, better, flashier, when in fact I knew I had done more training than them. And so I was feeling the anger because I was like, I know I'm better than them, but they're bigger or whatever than me.
Mm-hmm.
And this one hit me hardcore. My best friend sent me this thing a few years ago, and it said, there are people less qualified than you doing the things you want to do simply because they decided to believe in themselves.
Yeah.
And I mean, that was like, hit me over the head of, that's what it is. And so a big thing for me has been, growth as a 9 has been to use my anger to give me energy to fuel myself.
Yes.
Because I remember when I first learned that, I was like, somebody's told me that, and I was like, that's not possible. Like, the anger is bad. I can't get in touch with it. How could anger ever be good? And as I've worked with that, it's like, so now when I get angry, I want to numb out. I'm like, let me go take a nap. Let me drink a beer. Let me scroll Instagram. Let me go on a walk. Let me calm it down. And now I've learned to say, no, Emily, you have some energy. Finally, use it. Like, now redo your website because you're mad about it, or whatever. Clean out the basement with your anger rather than go take a nap. So that has been a way that I've gotten more energy by getting in touch with my anger, which
that is awesome.
Never thought would happen in my entire life.
Totally. Well, we have a marker board on our fridge. And I can get in this really, like, we've talked about this. Bye, Eli. Are you leaving? Okay, bye, Eli. Thank you. We have a marker board on our fridge, and I'll get so tired of like not keeping up with my housework or not doing whatever that I said I was going to do. And one day I was just like, I'm so tired of myself. And so I just like, I'm tired of this crap. I'm tired that I can't get my kitchen cleaned or whatever. I think it was on a Saturday. And my husband, Jonathan, woke up and like went downstairs and like saw that on the fridge. He was like, do I need to know something about this? Like, I'm like, that's helping me. Like, this is like saying that I'm so angry at myself is helping me get it done.
Yes.
And, I'm thinking about so many of our friends, like Marjana, like I know you pretty well through the group. Helen, I'm thinking about our stories that we've shared before, Heather and Miranda. And I'm like, I know I've heard people in the group talk about their anger, talking about how something made them angry that somebody didn't, like finding the way to channel it. Like, do you have a secret, Emily, not to like steal all your ideas, but like, how do you like take it and go out with it and like to the good thing?
I literally think about it and think, like, I'm thinking the other day I was mad. I actually can't remember what I was mad about, but I remember thinking, go clean the basement. Like the basement has been bugging. I mean, we've been in quarantine for like 5 months. I've had 5 months to clean the basement, and I always put it off. And so I was mad about something, and I was like, and I thought, no. So I think it's making that choice to then channel it. And then sometimes when I am frustrated about something, I remember the anger. So like, if I haven't done something and I haven't done or if here's a better way, I'm putting off doing something. So I think, okay, Emily, you're putting it off. Think of how angry you're going to be at yourself when this turns around and bites you in the butt because you didn't do it on time, and try to channel the energy. So channeling energy is what I would almost call it.
Also considering the benefit that you will get from it being clean or finished or whatever.
Yes.
I think part of that too is learning how to savor a moment of goodness Like, it's clean. This feels good. I love how I feel when this is clean. Like, relishing in that goodness so that you can remember, moving forward.
Yes. That's definitely something. Learning what makes me happy and what puts me in a good mood, so that then I try to give my family those heads up. I'm like, hey, mom is in a really good mood when the kitchen's clean. Heads up, like, if you don't, because I don't want the anger to come out either. But when the kitchen's clean, I'm just like, my mind is clearer. So let's all help this happen. And then mom stays in a better mood for longer.
Mm-hmm. Yes, I hear that. Okay, let's go to Heather. Heather, are you with us?
I am, yes.
You're very patient.
Aren't all nines or meant to be? So it was hard to decide, what to talk about. I've grown in so many like areas since finding out that I was a nine. I'm kind of a like self-development junkie, so but I will say when I first read about the nines and the sloth thing, I was so mad about it as somebody that didn't get mad very often. Being like such a performer and a people pleaser, and I was always so proud of like how busy I always am, and so I was like, what do you mean sloth? I don't, sure I'd like to nap, but I don't nap. And when I like dug deeper and found out, what sloth really means for a nine, I like understood that was kind of what you guys were just talking about, the motivation behind like lack of initiative and tendency to withdraw and those kinds of things. And it's been useful to just be able to see it honestly and like have language to describe it, so that I can say, hold up, like this is very nine of me. What is actually most important right now? Like in this moment, what should I be doing?
Yeah.
Yeah. And it's really like it's kind of led me into other things like I've gotten really like in touch with my body. I lived in my head for so much of my life, to the point where like I wouldn't know that my leg was falling asleep until it was like really painful, and I'd be like, oh, hold up, I'm sitting on my leg and it's like killing me now, or like I didn't know I was even gripping the steering wheel really hard until my hands are like aching. So it's been cool that like I've been able to like get in touch with my anger more, through learning more about the Enneagram, and especially like during quarantine where like my anger is right there. It seems to be a lot easier to get a hold of. I've learned like what it looks like. It's more like little frustrations and annoyances and now I can see them instantly, and I go, and it's empowering to be like, I'm allowed to be angry. Like it's, I'm especially when like boundaries have been violated, because for me that's usually where my anger comes from. And so, like I'm like, okay, I'm allowed to have this anger, this feeling, and okay, and like, and then I'm not channeling it into like doing something protective to myself, but more about like, how do I make sure that I either, meet this boundary, or I put a new one up, or speak to them about it. It's when I like really try to lean into my 8 wing, and because really what I've learned, and I consciously remind myself of this all the time, avoidance and like staying quiet only transfers that like conflict that I'm trying to avoid from the outside to inside, where I have to bear it by myself. And and honestly, like from just from experience, I'd rather face what needs facing and get it out of the way so that I can have those moments where like there's actual peace, like not like, oh, I'm stirring inside and and waiting to erupt. So a lot of my growth has been very much on what I call like the shadow side of the nine, and like it's pretty funny because my most recent like realization as a nine is that all these personality traits that I like love and have been so proud of for so long, the peaceful, easygoing, agreeable, like everybody's unofficial counselor, everybody tells you their story as soon as they meet you, and that, they're spilling everything. It really made me feel really special, and it felt like my personality was like a gift, like it's somehow bestowed upon me, um, and while it turns out, I learned in the Enneagram that it's really just that's how I like that's my reaction to my like core longing to have the peace. Like it's
Mm-hmm.
literally just the tools that I use to achieve what I want.
Yeah. Oh,
So
that's so good. I like that.
there was just some false humility that I like wasn't aware of.
Mm-hmm.
And there's a little, but in such a good way. Like of course I was taken down a peg or two about it, but it's in such a good way. It's like in a freeing way. Um, and it helped me to like look at everybody, the other numbers in the Enneagram, and other people in my life, and who would have more aggressive traits, and I'd be like, oh, I'm glad I'm not like that. I had to learn to be like, oh, that's not okay. Like there's no trait or personality, any expression of that is better or worse. Like
Yeah.
none of them come from some pure benevolent place. We're all just trying to, we're just all following our core motivations. So
Yeah, that's good. Thank you, Heather. All right, Elizabeth, I want you to go, and then Miranda, not to put you on the spot, but I am going to come back to you one last time. But Elizabeth, the floor is yours.
All right. Wow. So kind of being towards the end of this conversation, I've been able to hear from everyone thus far, and I started having some ideas. Oh, I'm like, no, this is what I want to touch on. I think the biggest things that are coming up for me in recent months in terms of growth as a 9 are boundaries and anger. Really navigating what those are, and I've been hearing a lot about anger, and I'll touch on that last. But first, boundaries for me is really just coming in the form of learning how to say no, and it's really small stuff. Like I'm that person where in the past, if I'm buying something and a sales associate says, hey, do you want to sign up for a rewards program or a newsletter, or can I have your email? A lot of times I'm like, oh, okay, and or like, here, would you like to make a donation for this or for that? And I always would find myself kind of impulsively saying yes, and most of the time wanting to say no, probably 99% of the time wanting to say no. So I've really kind of tried to pause, half second or so in my mind when asked those questions, to just say no, thank you. And I've been listening to a lot of and reading a lot of Brene Brown. In addition to all the Enneagram stuff, I really love Brene Brown. And I have been playing a lot of her lectures on Audible. A lot of her speaking engagements she's had recorded, and those are also really good too. And I was listening to something she said the other day in my car, and something clicked for me, where she was talking about, she talks a lot about shame, but she was talking about, for her, she has a lot of shame around being high maintenance. This is 9s, there's a lot of fear of being perceived as high maintenance. Like if I say, I don't want this, I do want this, I need this, I don't need that, somehow there's this fear that someone's going to be like, oh, well, she's very high maintenance, or she has a lot of demands, and I never want to be perceived that way. I always fight tooth and nail to be as easygoing as possible, but I'm having to learn that just because you're stating what you need or what you want, it doesn't mean you're high maintenance. And there's also a kind, thoughtful way to express what you need in a way that doesn't sound, demanding, or it doesn't sound condescending. And me as a 9, I feel like I know how to do that really well. It's just doing it. And so that's been something I've really tried to push myself more towards, is learning how to say no, or learning how to ask for something. But for me lately, a lot of that's just learning how to say no. And I've seen the little baby steps I've made in that area. And then the other thing, been hearing some really, really good stuff about anger. And I want to share this sort of moment that I had a few months back where I was very much in anger at that moment, kind of dwelling on some things that happened earlier this year that were really painful for me, you know, a few individuals involved, and just really dwelling on that and feeling a ton of this anger, you know, and having been inside anger for many months over it. And I had one of these moments where I was very much in anger over this thing that happened. And I kind of had to pause and had this sort of epiphany, I guess, where it's like, maybe this is semantics, but I remember telling myself, like, turn your anger into passion. Turn your anger into passion. Learn how to turn that into something meaningful, productive, spiritual even. But like for me, the phrase that had it all gel for me was turn that anger into passion. And so I've been hearing the ways a lot of you guys have kind of explained that in your own lives and what that looks like for you. So when I kind of have those moments of anger, it's like, okay, how can I turn this anger into passion? How can I turn it into something that fuels and drives me to be better, you know, to be better at something, to better myself. And it's not that every time I feel angry, I can turn it into that. I wish that were the case, but kind of having that phrase to sort of speak back to myself when I'm really kind of in the throes of anger, I've found has really been helpful. And learning that I can press into anger, and anger is not bad, and anger can be a very good thing if turned into something that I can then, you know, take and make something better or make myself better. So I would say, you know, in summary, the boundaries and really anger have been areas that I've seen growth in. So
That's great.
Thank you.
Thank you, Elizabeth.
Yeah.
All right, Miranda.
Yeah, no problem. So you're talking about that sense of belonging, and that background that I have of being a military kid plays a lot into it. Gets pretty exhausting, always being the new kid. You want to make sure that you make friends, and you make friends quickly. So I definitely learned to like observe, see what other people are interested in, see what other people like, because that's the fastest way to make friends. And so because of that, I always like pushed aside what I actually enjoyed or what I actually liked, never really even took time to process what I am personally interested in, because I want to make sure I can make friends. And then since finding the Enneagram, it just, I don't know, I feel like I have like so much more compassion for myself, so much more awareness of who I am. And then the Enneagram group, just to be able to hear other people sharing that they have felt similar things as me, it makes me feel not so alone, a little less desperately grasping for people who can connect with me, or people that I can connect with, because our personalities are a way that we connect. It doesn't have to be just outwardly the kind of hobbies that we have. So
Yeah, that's awesome. I think that's also just the gift of the Enneagram in general for our society, is that people are talking about their feelings. They're talking about, you know, I'm a 9 or I'm a 1, or, you know, not everyone wants to admit what they are or what their issues are. But for those people that are interested, I just feel like it's taking us to another level together, you know, as a community, as a people. But I just want to thank you for being here. I'm just like, my heart, when I hear everyone's story together, and like I feel like we all have different things we're offering. We all have different things that we're bringing. But like, I also feel just like a commonality, a common thread among our spirit, among our heart, and just our desire for who we are, and, you know, who we can put ourselves in, or how we can show up in the world, is what I'm trying to say. So if you heard any encouragement from anyone else here on the panel today, Like if you heard, so-and-so's story and you're like, oh yes, I feel that. I feel that too. Like recognize that whatever you saw that was good in them, like how can you see the good things in yourself too? And how can you like breathe air, breathe goodness into that and bring it more? Because I want to spend another hour here and just go around and like say everything that I feel about each of you right now. I just feel so inspired by all of you guys. So I'm going to end us off with a quote here. And this is from the Wisdom of the Enneagram, of course. And it is, it's one that I share all the time. And so I apologize, Marjana and Helen, you like have heard this every day of your life from me. But it says, if there is an energy that is needed to restore a balance on this troubled globe, it is certainly the calm, healing, reconciling energy of healthy nines. Know that when you are truly connected to yourself, you have all the power and capacity you need for whatever situation you face. So I just say, keep bringing yourself, keep digging in, keep doing what you're doing, because like we said earlier, it's just about that, like engaging more, bringing more of what we do know that we can offer, and just continuing to step forward, one baby step at a time. So thank you guys so much for doing this. And I don't know if this audio will even go anywhere else, but just the fact that I got to be a little Brady Bunch here on my screen with you guys for a bit is really fun. So can y'all take off your audio so I can say bye to you? Does anybody have anything else to say? Raise your hand, or just, peace out if you want to say bye.
I was actually just going to comment on what Elizabeth was saying. I have 3 bottles of car cleaner because I was at a gas station and somebody was selling it and I didn't know how to say no. So I got no use.
Feel you.
Yes. Oh, that's funny. All right, guys. Well, thank you. It was those of you that I'm just meeting today, Brandon, Emily, thank you so much for coming.
This was great. Thanks for
And
the
all of our
opportunity. It was
friends.
fun.
Thank
All
you,
right,
Lindsay.
guys. Sorry about the technical difficulties.
No
Next
problem.
time I'll be like a star. Like it'll be like ahead of the game. I'm gonna have like big time speakers behind me and the whole thing. All right, guys. Have a good day.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Uh,
Thank
Bye.
you.
Bye, guys.
Bye bye.